Welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, October 11th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the Tennessee 7th Congressional District special election that's set to take place this coming December. Now, I've seen a lot of videos talking about, comments talking about this race in particular, asking me to cover it on this channel. And I originally was wondering when would be the right time to talk about the Tennessee race here. It was a very competitive, multi-way Democratic primary, but also in a race that arguably is expected to be quite good for the Republican Party after Donald Trump won this seat by over 20 points in the last election, and the Republicans won it on the congressional level by about 23 percentage points. Now, the expectations for this race are likely that Republicans are going to win here, but this could be a very unique, interesting sleeper case for the Democratic Party because I remember 8 years ago when my channel was still around talking about the 2017 races, it took until December for Democrats to eventually win a race, and it was a very notable one in the Deep South. And that was the Alabama Senate race that took place on December 12th, 2017. It was the first real display of a special election of Democrats outpacing Republicans in a way that was record pace. And obviously, there were a lot of factors here. Roy Moore's scandals were, out the wazoo when it came down to what voters had perceived him for and what he had been accused of. And all the different things of his past, too, had come to light through the Senate election. It was the perfect storm and combination for a Republican loss because of their lackluster nominee, who, arguably looking at this race, you could attribute a lot of that support to Doug Jones based on the scandals alone, but you have to acknowledge that this was a race that was still tremendously difficult to pull off. Doug Jones evidently only ended up winning by roughly 1.5 points in this state. And so when you think about the factors that it took for it to even get to this point, that it was even feasible, because we've seen some scandal-plagued candidates on the right easily make it through a general election, Alabama said no. And in 2025, the question will be in Tennessee, this is not the same case on the Republican side, but is this one of these races that as we get closer to the end of the year, ends up being something that Democrats could shockingly pull off in an upset? Well, let's first start off with talking about Tennessee's 7th Congressional District, a district that in the last election, Republicans won, I said 23 points earlier, actually 21.5, and on the presidential level, we can take a look at the margin at which Donald Trump won by roughly 22%, and the same can be translated to Marsha Blackburn's reelection in the United States Senate. 22 percentage points in this district. Now, that actually puts it outside of the traditional means of where Democrats would normally focus on to flip districts not only in 2026, but also where they have historically targeted. In 2018, they targeted states and districts that had voted for Donald Trump by 15 points or less, because reasonably speaking, that's what made sense for the time. But looking at the 2025 cycle, there's been some shocking overperformances, even in the reddest of districts across the country, that seem to suggest that under the right circumstances, maybe the 7th district could be competitive. Now, we first need to talk a little bit about the Republican and Democrat here. Matt Van Epps is the Republican here. He's the nominee. He very much is associating himself with Donald Trump, calls himself an America First candidate at every single juncture. Afton Bain, however, on the other side, is a Democrat. And looking at this race, it was a multi-way competitive primary. She's a state representative from the 51st district, and it will be very interesting to see exactly how this general election shakes up. Now, Matt Van Epps is not an elected statewide official. He's not an elected official in the district. He's described as the former commissioner of the Tennessee Department of General Services. Chances are that in this primary, which we saw on the Republican side, which is actually quite interesting, he got 51% of the vote here, but received the endorsement from Donald Trump in this primary, which was a last-minute endorsement, but it was one that certainly helped decide this otherwise competitive primary, to which it ended up being about a 25-point margin for Matt Van Epps. But the general election is really what I'm focused in on. Because the special elections, like I said earlier on this year that we've seen, are in districts like Florida's 1st, which Democrats ended up making massive gains in. You're talking 15 to 17% in terms of gains in Florida's 1st and 6th district here. But these are districts that Donald Trump and Republicans won by 33 and 30 points in the last election. So it is quite difficult to see in any circumstance how Democrats would have been able to outperform enough that they're flipping Trump plus 30 districts, which would essentially suggest that every single district in the country would stand to be competitive in 2026, and we know that absolutely is not going to be the case. But as it is unique to Tennessee's 7th district here, the reason why I consider it to be one that could very well have a shocking upset for the Democrats, not saying at all that they are the favorites or that Democrats should expect a shocking upset in Tennessee's 7th district. But given the track record of some of their overperformances, whether it's in Arizona's 7th, a district that Kamala Harris won by 22 points, that Adelita Grijalva won by 40, whether it's in Virginia's 11th district, where the Democrats won in the last cycle by 34, but James Walkinshaw won by 50 in 2025. Or Florida's 1st and 6th, where it's gone from Trump plus 33 to Trump, or for Republicans, plus 14, and Trump plus 30 to Republicans plus 15. Overperformance after overperformance after overperformance, which brings me to a special election that never even happened. The canceled special election for New York's 21st district after Elise Stefanik, the incumbent Republican who currently represents that district, was supposed to be ambassador to the United Nations. And while she was probably going to be UN ambassador, I don't doubt that she would have gotten votes from some Democrats and Republicans across the Senate that would have confirmed her for this position. It wasn't a question of whether she would be confirmed that ultimately sank her bid. It was an election that took place the day before Donald Trump rescinded his nomination of Elise Stefanik to the United Nations. The day before he decided to make this choice, Democrats won a victory in a Pennsylvania state Senate race that became a national headline. And you might be thinking, okay, why does it really matter? Why does it make a difference in this race? Because it is a state Senate district, and it arguably doesn't have the same impact that you might expect a congressional race, a Senate race, a gubernatorial race, but it had a tremendous one. Because of the fact that this state Senate district had voted for Trump by 15 in the last cycle, and the Republican who held this seat by massively more in the previous election, Democrats getting a victory here was the first real warning sign for Republicans that even in some of their safer districts, they were absolutely vulnerable. And the very next day, citing reasons of electability and concern for the slim GOP House majority, the White House revoked Elise Stefanik's UN nomination. Thinking about that exact margin that Elise Stefanik had in this election in the last cycle, she won it by 24 points. If Donald Trump and the White House were fearful enough of a 24-point margin for Elise Stefanik in the last election that they rescinded her UN nomination over, what does that mean for a district that voted for Trump and the Republicans by less? What does that mean in this special election when Republicans won't be turning out in the same way and Democrats will be? And as the track record suggests, it doesn't say Democrats will flip this district, but it absolutely shows that that district might be shockingly competitive and be a very good warning sign for the Republicans of what is to come in 2026. Because you can go back on my channel, I don't take my videos down, you'll find that in 2017, we covered the special elections ranging Kansas's 4th, Montana at large, Georgia's 6th. If you think about these races, I can actually pull them up because I remember where they were because we covered the races. These were ones that saw massive changes that foretold the eventual loss for the Republicans in 2018. While Democrats may not have eventually won these districts, for instance, Kansas 4th went to Mike Pompeo, who is winning here in 2016 by 31.1, but in the special election, Ron Estes wins by just about 6 points. In Georgia's 6th, a great example here, I bring it up because Jon Ossoff is a sitting U.S. Senator from Georgia. He got his start, not as an elected official, but running to be one in 2017 in Georgia's 6th district. Tom Price had won this district in 2016 by a pretty significant amount, by 23.4%. But just less than half a year later, what happens? Karen Handel defeats Jon Ossoff not by the massive margin that Tom Price won by of 23, but instead by 3. In South Carolina's 5th, Ralph Norman defeated Archie Parnell in this race by roughly 4 points. That 5th district in 2016 went to the Republicans by 21. And so while Democrats may not come within the victory range in Tennessee's 7th district, they absolutely will give the Republicans a run for their money. And it will be a very interesting test coming after the Virginia races, the New Jersey races, the New York City mayoral race, the Proposition 50 in California, all of these different things that will be great determinants of what Republicans and Democrats could and should expect in 2026. But thinking about this 7th district in particular, it could very well be a shock to many people across this country, especially if Democrats come within a very close margin, because I do expect it to be an outperformance. The question is, to what degree? A lot on the table here in 2025, a lot to talk about and a lot to analyze going into the next midterm cycle. This special election will probably be one of the last points of interest of this year as we go and barrel right into the most probably expensive, but also exciting, I think, midterm cycle we have covered yet on this channel. 2026 is going to be a fascinating race, and it will be races like these. Tennessee's 7th District, where Afton Bain and Matt Van Epps will help set the standard for what special elections will look like, especially in these limbo districts that are solid conservative, but right on the cusp of Democrats having a 1 in 10 chance of flipping it rather than a 1 in 100 chance like we've seen in Florida's 1st and 6th districts. Because we've seen Democrats flip Trump plus 22 districts before. We saw it in Pennsylvania, and we saw it most recently in Iowa in State Senate District 1. And it would be interesting to see if Tennessee joins the bunch as a group, as a district rather, that flips to the Democrats, or is it one where Democrats have a massive overperformance? The ultimate answer is only time will tell. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the top left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 House election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.